Why don't you get into your topic? What do you want to hit first?
Why don't we start with this? So to be honest, I remember making a pledge to myself at the beginning of the year. I was like, I'm going to read a book every 2 weeks. Yeah, that hasn't panned out. I'm not a New Year's resolution keeper, but I started reading Made in America, I think kind of before the summer, and I just put a pause on it, and I restarted it last week. And there was a quote, and Made in America is Sam Walton's autobiography, kind of talks about his management philosophy in some ways, as well as kind of how he grew Walmart into the company it was when he passed. And so there's this quote from him kind of towards the end of the book where he kind of talks about bloat. He says, a lot of bureaucracy is really the product of some empire builder's ego. Some folks have a tendency to build up big staffs around them just to emphasize their own importance. And we don't need any of that at Walmart. If you're not serving the customer or supporting the folks who do, we don't need you. I think that is like, you see that so much today. And I have a few companies that come to mind initially.
You mean a lot of back office administrative stuff, bloat? Is that what he's referring to here? Kind of just like managers, VPs, whatever?
Yeah, just hiring for the purpose of like expanding the
Hiring.
empire,
Yeah.
just so you could say like 1,000 people work for me,
Yeah.
or I have this big team, and it makes you, the more people that work at your company, kind of the bigger your empire is, and you kind of judge your size, you judge your importance by the amount of people that work at the company. I think a lot of companies do that, or they try to fill it with, I don't know, maybe a Matthew McConaughey in the boardroom or in certain meetings. They try to pay for these expensive board members that maybe don't need to be there. I see it so much where companies brag about hiring, and maybe they don't do it in the public sphere, but I think you see it a lot probably with people in their personal lives where they judge the success of their enterprise by how many people work at the company. And I think just having this quote from Sam Walton, it kind of, for me, it sort of reiterated my belief that companies headquartered in the Midwest or the South have a more frugal culture generally. I know there's outliers here, and Ron, have a more frugal culture than a lot of the Silicon Valley or finance hubs of the world.
Yeah. And this excludes Florida, the South, Florida, different, but yeah. Or maybe Ireland is a good choice there. It reminds me of Ryanair. I think it has a lot of those. They probably learned some from Walmart, learned from Southwest, has a similar culture where the CEO, and this is the biggest airline in Europe, I think, says he only has 4 levels. It might have been 5, might have been 3. I think it's 4 levels from him down to the customer check-in desk. So that's, I think, a good example of the opposite of, we're not looking for, and it reminds me of every big tech company except Apple, maybe. Apple seems to be pretty good at that, not doing this, but they probably still, I mean, if you get large enough, you're going to have some of this. I'm sure Walmart has some of this just because they're so large nowadays. But basically every large cap tech company reminds me of this. If you're a technology company with a market cap over $50 billion, I think odds are that you might want to look at this quote and look at yourself in the mirror if your stock hasn't been doing well, but TBD. All right, we have a question here
Question
from
first.
John. Oh, okay.
Who does this remind you of?
Like the opposite or the good?
The bureaucracy. Filling up your company just to fill up your company. Any companies that come to mind?
Oh, specific ones? I mean, like I said, every big tech company except Apple. And then if you're a tech company with a market cap over 50 billion, I think that's all of them, basically.
Yeah, that's fair. Salesforce for me is the one that came to mind.
Yeah, and that's in my criteria there as well.